Well, hello everyone. It is Friday, August the 5th, 2022. I am Dale Delbridge, Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and this is your Status Chat. Now, I have a middle segment that I've already recorded. It ran a little bit long than I would rather it to be, so I'll use what I can to electronically compress it for time and content. What do you say we will get to it now? Well, welcome to today's middle segment. And today, like always, if I bring to you something specifically, if it comes from a retail source, I want to make sure that I fully credit that source that I get the article from. You'll find the one we're going to read in the description of the status chat in which it appears, which is this one. So if we get done and we have time permitting, I have a little time row here in the console, since I've already been talking for nearly 30 seconds. If we have time when we look at this article, and I'll try to skim lightly, we'll pop up a site and just do some spot pop checks all around the country and look at some wavy lines and that sort of thing to really kind of keep a feel to it. Because as you know, if you have any kind of interest in this stuff and you have any social media, we got henny penny, the sky has fallen, we're going into recession, we're in recession, we're not in recession, all this stuff. And those who want to tell you that pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Reality is somewhere in between there. And we really need that experiential filter to know where people are coming from, because it's not always a point about we being right and they being wrong. It's the context in which we make our statements. And some of the statements, quite honestly, are not very well informed. I will give you that. And some of them are very well informed about markets that we're not involved in Middle Tennessee. So let's go ahead and kick over to this other panel where the article is. And it's from CNBC. Bottom line, it says, where companies say they will cut budgets first in a soft economy. Because I think we're certainly headed that way. And this is published today, August 5, 2022, 8 a.m. this morning. Mr. Eric Rosenbaum is the man who wrote this. And what I'm bringing it to you for is we are in a recession. Anybody other than a current administration or the Democrat Party would have accepted this as a recession, but they like to play names with words because our emotion has so much power over us in our marketplace and our market behavior. But whether we are or we're not doesn't change anyone's personal budgets just yet, does it? It is what it is. We're growing massive amounts of credit card debt thanks to the corona shutdown, and we're dealing with that on top of having rising interest rates. They've been fairly aggressive, and they could get worse. So let's see what this says, because if inflation keeps going higher, and if they pass the PIT bill, which is for our veterans, and it's a good one, I think, to take care of our veterans. The issue that we really have with that is, like most bills that come out of Congress, the thing they say they're going to do is very small, and then they pack a bunch of pork in behind it. Generally, the pork outweighs the thing that they're actually funding. This is no different. Plus, we just had another couple trillion being spent, at least $1+ trillion being spent. It's going to go to the most. That's going to be inflationary. Most people understand it. They don't want to argue the semantics. They understand that we're headed for hard times because they keep spending money, but there's no one out there able to keep them from spending that money. So if we go to our story, that's why I bring you this one, where companies say they will cut budgets first in a softer economy. Now, we get down here, usually the key points is about all you need to do to gloss over something this size. It says many companies are reducing their real estate footprint as a result of pandemic changes in the way the corporate staffers work, and with the rise of more flexible work from home policies. As the economy weakens, there are more corporate budget cuts. A new Gardner survey of CFOs finds that one of the main areas where companies will reduce spending is in real estate. And that doesn't mean in homes. It just means that the company having like a big office building, the downtown urban environments, we're going to probably see more of that shift to a pandemic-like model where companies still make people come in maybe for weekly or bi-weekly meetings, but they're just going to downscale the office space they use. And it gets down here, and that's pretty well much all we really need to read out of this article. You can read it, and I think you can click that link to actually get the survey. But it says it's no secret that companies are reducing their real estate footprint. Given that 72% of CFOs, chief financial officers, want to trim their organization's real estate footprint by the end of 2022, which we're going that direction, it is to be expected that facilities management is looking for budget reductions, said Marco Horvat, Vice President, Research in the Gardner Finance Practice. And there's his little survey. And it gives us some punches, some numbers. It talks about West Coast Finance, Brex, now owns roughly 45% of employees work remote. So we're seeing that trend. So if you happen to have a home that may have the same square footage as an adjacent home in the same neighborhood, a home that has an extra closed-in office that could be used to work from home may be worth more money. The other thing is, as we do this, we're going to have some adjustment, just kind of like the COVID was, except with inflation and high interest rates. Now, if we go back to the story, that's pretty well much the gist of it. They give us some more numbers. Finance in particular is a function where automation is increasingly being used, according to the Gardner survey. It is the other area most vulnerable to budget cuts. 22% of finance leaders say cuts from their own functions are a target, second to real estate. So there we have it. We have the people giving the bad news. Believe it well enough, they're a little bit nervous. But what it boils down to is they're going to shift through real estate budget into IT budgets to help bolster. There it is. They're going to shift it from real estate to IT, because as we need more computers perhaps and printers and that sort of thing and connections, the infrastructure for the company to work with, they're going to take real estate money that they would have spent on offices and rents and put it back into IT. So that's what that has to say about it. When we think about real estate, our minds typically think about everything local because that's where we're going to buy. But much of the news we get is based upon a nationwide news media and social media that gives us the information. So I have a spot here that I'm going to pull up. I'm not going to give you the particular website because it's just Redfin and we can go look at it any time. But if we're in a big enough area like Nashville, Tennessee, we pull number from our MLS. And what we see here is, first, they don't really have a lot of tags. Redfin itself as a company doesn't really have a lot of tags out here. But we do see that June 2022 is actually down a little bit from June, July, May, and April. And then it starts to go away. What does it actually show us? That prices have actually leveled off according to Redfin. And they say that they went up year over year 19%, which is great if we're going to come from this point, June 22. See, from here, we're about 400,000 and we jump up. So it is a significant increase. But people are always looking for that slope. But the number of homes we see is down year over year. So even though we may be up by 19% or so, we're actually down in the number of homes sold. The median days in market is still growing shorter, actually. So Nashville looks in pretty good shape. Let's find a different Nashville. Now, I don't know if Nashville, North Carolina is going to be large enough to have a graph, but we'll see what we have. Okay, it's a smaller town, you see, North Carolina, same namesake. The sales price there has dropped 7.5% year over year, while the dollars per square foot is going up. So we have nicer, fancier little homes, but we're seeing a price drop. Okay, what does that tell us? Well, to me, it tells us let's not confuse what's happening in our market with a lot of the news that is very real and very honest. And if we speak about globals, when we're talking about the United States, when we're talking about the global variables from coast to coast, water to water, and border to border, we can see that actually can be true, that we are dropping prices in housing markets, and we can see that things are slowing down. It just is not necessarily our Nashville, Middle Tennessee area. So let's look at somewhere else. Now, you do notice on before I move, the average house price in Nashville, North Carolina is under $200,000, and that's down almost 8%. So let's do a northern city. Let's do Michigan, Detroit, and here we see an actual increase in prices over this last little bit. But look, it's 31% year over year increase. So from this time last year, they've gone up 31%. But look at the median sales price in Detroit, less than $100,000. And there's only 511 homes sold in this particular period. And days on market is close to a month compared to where we were at about 5 days. Let's find some other place. How about another big city we're sure to get a good graph off of? Let's look at Portland, Oregon. We could look for some more Nashville, but we'll look here. Here they're having an increase of 7.6% compared to Nashville's 19% increase in home values over a period of years. So why does that matter? Well, because if we were to lose 10% off of 19%, we're still up 9%. So even when you see a price trend coming down, the home values on aggregate are going up. And that's the big deal. Now, the numbers of homes sold, I want to draw attention to this. In Portland, the Portland housing market is down 17%. That's almost like down 1 in 5. Of course, look at the prices. $495, $380, $399, $420. It's a high-end market. I would expect to see high-end markets take the bite harder sooner. And let's look at their little graph. Now their graph has come down, but even if you were to take and draw a line from where it is today to back here 2020, it's still pretty well much a straight line, and it's still up. Again, even though they may look like they're not as in great shape, they're still in pretty good shape. Let's see if we can find some place that may not be doing quite as well. Someplace in California. Let's do Los Angeles County. Okay, in LA County, we see some pretty high-end homes. Let's see what their market insights are. They're up 7%. That's still less than half of what we are in our market. The number of homes are down almost 21% year over year, and the days on market is close to a month. So what is it really telling us? To me, I think it's just telling us all real estate is local, and we can look at these stories and understand that we have to kind of pick through and glean the truth out of them. The bigger market, the luxury markets, are already beginning to take a hit, bigger than we are in our first home market. So let's look at that. 20%, almost over 1 in 5 in these two markets alone. Well, let me see if I can pull up my local area in the database we have. If I were to look at the shape of this, we're still going up. That's all price ranges. If we go in the low price range, look what we've kind of hit for the median sales price. We see it's come up, hit about 160, and now it's beginning to drop. Let's put it back here in about the middle where we expect to find most homes, and it has kind of risen up. It's flattened out this last month, but it hasn't really dipped much. Well, if we're going to see something, it's probably going to be on the greater half, but that's really not a fair half at $400,000 homes just like this. So let's take it and put it in terms of the type. Let's look at what we're looking at, all price range. But let's look at the shape for single family homes, and let's put it in terms of closures. Okay, there we go. So for single family homes, we are seeing a little bit of a dip. It's not bad. It's just kind of flat. Turn it over to townhouses. Townhouses also have a little dip. What about condominiums? Well, condominiums are having a bigger hit. And we might ask, well, why is that the way it is? Well, I think it's because, like that first article we looked at, I think we're beginning to see more of the migration continuing. We're seeing people move out of the bigger area of Metro Davidson County, Nashville, into the smaller communities. So that puts more demand on single family homes and less on the condo or the high-rise development type of homes. They're simply moving out. Now, this is all price range, and there's nothing that says that a rural county can't have more condominiums. We can. We just don't have nearly as many as they do in the blue areas because they have such that concentration of living kind of in that downtown area, or however you want to put it, that densification of incomes that the urban model requires of business, that they must have a lot of people in area. But when we looked at that study, that report, that first article I brought you from NBC, CNBC, finance people were saying they were looking at ways to kind of go to that COVID-like response. They're going to try to downsize their real estate needs, their own offices for the businesses, and they're going to shift it to IT because people are going to be working more from home. Certainly, if we don't get a control over our energy prices, people will be looking at ways to kind of cut that way. If you can't give someone a raise to help them with their finances, one thing you can do is have policies within your organization that cut cost. And if people can work from home, that's one way they can do that. And that's what it looks like it's doing. Hello, I'm Dale Delbridge of Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If you are currently unrepresented and would like to know how to compare up to 3 properties side by side and room by room, then go over to my new YouTube channel, Call Dale to Sell. That's 1 L in Dale, no spaces. Watch the demo on Real Scout, and then call me and we'll set up your exclusive ad-free account today. Well, now that we've got that out, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but as much as we are different than the rest of the nation in some ways because of our demand and our low tax, our no income tax state, our good economy, our balanced budget, and our surplus we've run, we are attracting a lot of people. So our market is not doing what some of the national markets are doing. And the national markets also play into things such as the mortgages and mortgage-backed securities, all these things, even the price of lumber and availability of appliances, all of this plays into it. And while they may suffer more than we are, we can look to them as perhaps a canary in the cage and see what's going on with them. Now, we continue to print money that we don't have, and that waters down the value of everything we've accumulated to this point in time. And the high interest rates with rotating credit type thing, the credit cards and whatnot, those things are going up high. And we just socked a bunch of debt, most of us, during the COVID when we were told we couldn't work. So we have that burden. And we have the 110 rule. Now, the 110 rule is fairly simple. It's an approximation that says that for every 1% of your interest rate going up, your buying power goes down by 10%. Just simply meaning if you keep your number fixed for what you can pay for a mortgage, if that's fixed by your ratios and whatnot, when you go up 1%, you lose 10% of the house you can afford to buy. So we have reality that we are affected by the rest of the nation, but our local markets are not reflective of most of the United States. So let's get to our numbers from last week. Last week, 7/29/22, we had 15,646 opportunities in the Real Scout system. That is up over the previous period. We had 4176 in the under contract still showing. That is a decrease over the previous period. And the integer ratio taken between those two numbers fell to 27%, which is down 1 point over the previous week. This week, August the 5th, 2022, we had 15,802 opportunities in the Real Scout system. That's up again. And 4128 in the under contract still showing. That fell again this week. The ratio itself also lost 1 full percentage point in the integer level of the two. So we are seeing an increased supply, but our days on market remains low, so things are still turning pretty quickly, as a lot of people, I think, are looking to get in and get settled before perhaps the economy does slow down. Will it? Probably. When? I don't know. We'll find out. The CFOs seem to think it's going to start hitting somewhere around the end of the year. So that was sort of the purpose of seeing what those people thought were going to happen. So what do you say we get together and we start your hunt for a house? Just starting is the first step. Just because you start doesn't mean that you actually have to buy anything, but let's see what it takes, where you are, and how to get it going. And if you're looking to sell something, now is still a pretty good time while mortgage rates are still pretty low. They're not as low as they used to be, but they're still fairly low.